Net Music 24/7. You may take a break. Not us. We never take a break. We're always on. PPRNradio.net Music 24/7.
My cellar door. I love you, baby. Can I have some more? Ooh, the damage done. I hit the city and I lost my band. I watched the needle take another man. Gone, gone, the damage done.
Hello. Hello, PPRN listeners. Welcome to another episode of Open Source Recovery. So today we have a guest to speak with and to get some good information, and I think mostly for what I can see, a lot of inspiration. And, it's funny because some things sometimes just go together. And I was reading an article today from Vox News. I don't know if some of you have heard of this news station, but there was an article called The Opiate Epidemic Explained. And there was, towards the end of the article, something that was fairly disturbing. There's discussing the medical aspect of opiate addiction and why it's and why it is in fact an illness as opposed to a moral shortcoming. Although I thought we were way past that idea. But so for you Republicans out there, I apologize in advance. This is one of your own, Missouri State Senator Rob Schaaf, Republican, a remark that when people die of overdose, that just removes them from the gene pool.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah. Can you believe it? If you have that thought and you're a politician, keep it to yourself, right? I don't want to get too far into politics, but so I hear that, and then I meet Daryl, who's going to be our guest, and just very briefly, hear a bit of his story, which we're going to get into tonight, and here's a young man who's really impressive and one of the many high quality people who we need to put our resources in to saving from addiction, and certainly from the mortality of opiate addiction, but even from the destruction of someone's life potential. And Daryl luckily is one of the success stories, but there's a lot more success stories waiting out there. And right. And as many of you listeners may know, I am the part owner of a outpatient opiate addiction program in Madison. And you look around at my clients, and there's no kind of opiate addict. There's no typical person in my office. It's such a wide range of people, from background, ages, everything that you can think of. It's just very diverse, and there's not a single one of my clients that I wouldn't be proud to call a friend. They're good people, and they're contributing to society. So that statement is just kind of horrific, but we'll try to stay positive for the rest of the show. So we'll go around and reintroduce our co-hosts. I do know that one of them is waiting for me to text her right now. I tried to do it during the opening, but I missed the number. So Jackie's going to call in. She planned on being here, but she's going to have to call in. So I'm going to multitask while you reintroduce yourself again, lady to my right.
Alicia.
And we got that part now. And just, you want to say your name?
Sure. So my name is Daryl McGraw.
And Daryl is our guest, and we're gonna
And Daryl knows how to talk into a mic. Thank God.
Yeah. Oh.
It took me like a month, Daryl, and
All
I
right,
still
okay.
mess up. So don't
Okay,
worry about
well.
it,
Just another reason you're awesome.
yeah. Yes.
That is cool.
Yeah,
I
that's-
like here already.
So on Daryl's radio debut, so let me start by letting everyone know that Daryl, you both work for the state in a capacity that's in the field of the helping field, and then you also have your own nonprofit agency, correct?
Right.
So maybe we could start if you want to just briefly explain what it is that you do with the state.
All right, so I work for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. I am the director of the Office of Recovery Community Affairs. I am the liaison to the commissioner. I also work to help manage contracts for Advocacy Unlimited, CCAR, and NAMI in Connecticut. And I also work with grassroots organizations. I sit on, policy, do some policy stuff. So a lot of different stuff, a lot of different hats. It's really cool.
So when grassroots, because we had some grassroots people on our show last week. So when grassroots, and we were commenting that a lot of them were sort of popping up,
Right.
in response to people wanting to do something in a positive, contributing way to the opiate epidemic, and not. We don't necessarily have all the resources we need, so
Right.
people are creating their own.
Yeah.
So those grassroots organizations, what's the benefit of them being involved? Having contact with you and your department and that kind of thing.
Well, I think that it's cool that, first of all, Connecticut's a cool state. One of the things that we're like, if we're going to brag about stuff, one of the places, if you're going to be sick, Connecticut's one of the number one places to be in recovery. Because we have a lot of stuff going on, just like the grassroots organizations popping up. I love the fact that people are taking the initiative and not waiting for someone to act. A lot of people in Connecticut are just acting. So, having, reaching out to me, as you know, we're in a super tight budget crisis, but there are different things that we could do, and a lot of times it's just networking and connecting people to the right thing and or right organization. There's some organizations that's doing this and doing that, and together we try to help people recover.
Okay, so if someone has a certain aspect of recovery they're working on,
Right.
and they get in touch with you. You may know other people who are doing complementary things.
Exactly.
Link them together.
Or if they're doing something new and creative, like, we believe in multiple pathways to recovery, right? So some people are like all about 12-step, and then some people may be about smart recovery. Some people may be about this or that. So, connecting them, I know I got a lot of friends that are about the holistic, Qigong and yoga and stuff like that. So, having them and connecting all those different pathways, as we talked recently, recovery is a journey and not an event. So what might work for one doesn't work for all.
Okay, so I'm going to make a conscious effort when I come across those individuals to make sure that they're aware of your department, your existence,
Absolutely.
within that department.
Absolutely. I'll try to do the best I can.
Well, you know what? I think that's we hear a lot about how there aren't services, and I think that's the problem, that people don't know what we have out there.
Right.
That's the issue.
Absolutely. I mean, I can speak for myself. My little practice in Madison, where we take state insurance, which is pretty unusual, where we...
Well, that's good to know.
Yes. Yeah. And so Daryl, so we have a... I have a practice in Madison, and we take all insurances, including state, and we have this sort of unique model where the physician is in one room and the therapist is in another room, and we're working side by side and collaborating.
Right.
And then my background as an addiction psychologist means that I can treat mental health and addiction in an integrated way.
Oh, that's awesome.
So the clients come in, they're really getting comprehensive care, and they do extremely well. Alicia's been in my groups, and she's seen that. She's heard the clients go around group talking about how much clean time they have, and it's an extremely warm, welcoming, and respectful environment.
Right.
So I want more people to know about my practice, because I started that. I basically had the same model in another practice, but we weren't taking people with state insurance.
Right.
And then I kept getting call after call after
Right.
call, right? So I found some new partners and opened up a second practice where we take all insurance, but we specifically looked to open it up to people with Husky, and it's been great, and we're looking to get more people to be aware that we're even there.
And that's good to know. I take a lot of calls from parents who say, hey, I'm trying to get my kid into treatment, but they don't accept the insurance, or this has been a struggle for them. So knowing that, and especially knowing that, that you guys do that, I'll definitely let people know, because it's all about that.
That was a conversation we had last week, but not so much with Husky, though that's an issue. I've seen that firsthand, but with private insurance.
Right. Yeah. You'd be surprised. People are like, we have really good insurance, but they won't take this particular insurance. And that's a struggle for a lot of people. And then there's parents who, have resources, who have spent, the fact that the addiction is so cunning and baffling, they've spent a lot of money on trying to get someone well, or trying to get them back to, some sense of stability.
Yeah, and I think sometimes parents have to spend a lot of money because our system of care isn't set up in a way to really, ideally, to treat opiate dependency.
Right.
But that was a whole other show. I won't get too far into that now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to. There's not just there's treatment, there's prevention, but then we need to always talk about recovery, and that's if you brought me here, we're going to talk about recovery.
That's right.
And that's what we need to focus more on as a state in general. We're really focusing on the recovery piece, and there's like a lot of times you hear a lot about the medication assisted treatment, or you hear about the prevention methods. That's I don't want to go back to just say no days, but we really need to talk about the other side of it. What does recovery look like? What does that look like for a person? Because if I'm new and I'm using, I got all these friends and I have this lifestyle. What does recovery look like on the other side of the coin?
Yeah, and my practice is focused on recovery, and my clients recover, in the true sense of the word. But let's, if you don't mind, since I think you have both, you obviously have professional experience in terms of knowing what recovery is and looks like, and helping people get to that place. But if you're okay with maybe talking about your own recovery experience,
sure,
I think
absolutely.
that could provide some context.
So for me, so I just celebrated 10 years, so I'm very happy to say that, I'm finally in double digits. My clean date is May 7th, 2007. And that was the last time that I ever put a substance in my body, my mood-altering substance in my body, or ever been in the back of any more police cars or incarceration.
Is
and
there
stuff like
a
that.
relationship between those two things?
Oh yeah, totally. For me, yeah, that all. I'm one of those guys that it's all or nothing. So I did a lot of extensive research, criminal justice and personal research on my own.
Nice.
But yeah, my story, I spent 25 years of my life in the street using drugs, selling drugs, and running around Stamford, Connecticut, Bridgeport, Stratford, and then I made my way to New London, and the New London area as well. And for me, like I said, I was about 25 years in the street, but 10 years of my life I spent in and out of the Department of Corrections. And it was that last trip, May 7, 2007, that kind of, I realized that I needed to make some changes in my life. I don't know how much time we got, but I remember being in my house. I used to being of us. I don't know how many listeners are out there that are self-sabotagers, but I'm a huge self-sabotager, which means that I usually get the job, I get the car, the relationship. I get all those things back, and it takes me a pretty long time to get those things. But then, somehow I find a way to screw all that up. So May 7th was my day to screw all of that up. And I was an operations manager at one of the hotels in our area, and I supervised about 12 people, and I was home and I was kind of bored, and I was a lot bored. I'd like to say, even though my life was great, I had my kids at home, and I was sitting there after a day of work, and I remember
AVS Media Demo.
I don't know what that is,
Yeah.
but
Don't mind
That-
Peter.
that was-
there.
did everybody else hear that? Because
That was Latin for keep
Yeah.
going, Dow.
Okay, cool. Okay, I like it. All right, I'm just making sure everybody else heard that because
It wasn't just you. No.
Okay, cool,
Okay,
cool.
yeah, well,
So yeah, I'm home and I was kind of bored and he's gonna play that again.
no.
Oh,
he's just making a threatening gesture with it.
all right, cool. So and my girlfriend was making grilled cheese and French fries. And
You really remember this?
yeah,
Yeah.
this is my journey.
Okay.
So she's making grilled cheese and French fries, and I put my coat on, and like I have done numerous times before, and this particular night, and she asked me where I was going, and I was like, I got some business to tend to. Really, I was just going to go out and smoke crack, but and so we got into this little argument or whatever, and then I ventured out to do what I normally do and drive around in my car and pull over and get high or whatever the case may be. And this particular night I did that. And when I was finishing, that last hit of my crack joint, I looked in the rearview mirror and the police were there. And the police were, a place I've been numerous times before. And his lights were on. And so he pulls me over. And he comes up to the car and he's like, the reason why, why I'm pulling you over? And I'm like, no. And, the crack smoke's pouring out the car, the music's playing, and he says, I pulled you over because you're on your cell phone. And I was like, I wasn't on my cell phone. So we get into this little brief argument. And I say to him, I said, well, the reason why you pulled me over is because I'm black. But he was black too. So
Tough sell.
it's not, that's not, if you're going to use that, you got to use that right.
Yeah. That was the wrong way.
Yeah, well,
You were high. It's not your fault.
yeah,
Yeah.
It paused him for a second,
Yeah.
needless to say. After he looked at me, and he asked me for license and registration, and I had my license out. I grabbed for the registration, and he grabs me by the neck, and he starts choking me on the side of the road.
Get out.
Yeah. And he says to me, where are the drugs at? And he's choking me. And like I said, 20 minutes prior to that, I was home, safe, kids, grilled cheese, French fries.
Yeah.
That normal life, right? And now I'm on the side of the road getting choked.
It's not boring.
No. I like it. I like it live, right? And so he's choking me, and my foot hit the gas of the truck, and the engine revved. And he looked at me, and at the time I was driving a Durango with a 2 1/4 Flowmaster exhaust system on it for my car, guys. So it kind of like revved like a plane was about to take off. And he looked at me and he let me go. And when he let my throat go, I took off and I started driving.
Uh-huh.
So I started engaging police in pursuit, another bright idea of a person that's on crack. And, but needless to say, the fact that I was smoking crack, right, I didn't have that car chase gas in the car. Kind of only.
Did it occur to you that he already had your driver's license?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, listen. I didn't say I was the smartest guy at the time, right? So, I'm engaging these police in pursuit. The police are following me, and I'm looking at my gas tank, and the light's on. Every time I push the gas, the light comes on, And so I said, well, I got another bright idea. Why don't I bring all these police officers to my house? That way, at least my girlfriend could pick me up from the police station.
Oh.
So I bring all the police officers to my house, and I get out the truck, and the officer's standing there, and I was like, "Hey, officer, what's up? What's going on? What's all the commotion about?" I don't think he liked that, so he hit me with the taser,
Yeah.
and I remember falling to the ground, and he just kept teasing me and teasing me and teasing me.
Wow.
Yeah, and
not cool.
No, it wasn't cool. It wasn't a really good moment for me at the time.
No, but
And my neighbor, I remember my neighbor saying, "You're going to kill him. You're going to kill him."
One taser is usually enough.
No. They multiple tasers.
Yeah.
And so just to say, between smoking crack, and all that electricity, I don't know, by the grace of God, I sit here to be able to tell you this story, And after they finished tasing me, they brought me to the hospital, because when they bring you to the hospital, they have to take the prongs out of your body, right?
Yeah.
And so they did that, and it was at that point in time that I wasn't sure what, but I knew that I have given everything that I had. I couldn't live this life anymore.
That was your aha moment, huh?
That was it.
Multiple tasing.
Yeah, I don't know what other people's recovery methods are, but getting tased kind of was it for me.
Yeah.
Long story short, I ended up the police officer. One thing happened with the police officer. We don't have to go into all of that. You can read it in my book one day. But I ended up with a 4-year sentence, and I would never forget. I was in Hartford Correctional, West Wing 25 cell, and I didn't have a TV. I didn't have anything. I was in my cell, and some guy said, "Hey, I got a book for you to read." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to read a book, but whatever." And
you're bored.
I'm in here.
Now you're really bored.
I'm here, right? So when in Rome, right? So he gave me the book, and the book was The Purpose-Driven Life, and I started, and then. So I read like the foreword or whatever, and it said, "Hey, it was a 40-day spiritual journey, and my court date was 41 days away." So I said, "Oh God, I got it. You want me to read this book, and then once I read this book, you're gonna let me go because that's the way I think, right?"
Yeah.
So I read the book like I was supposed to, 40 days exactly. And when I first initially started writing a couple of paragraphs. But then I started writing like page after page, and I started doing all this internal research about myself. Mm-hmm. And by the time I finished reading the book, I had like 2 notebooks full of notes about myself. And I remember saying to myself, you know what, I'm going to go to court, and whatever happens, happens. Of course, I wanted to go home, but if not, I would have been okay with it because I knew that I had somehow found some purpose in that 25 cell. And I went to court, and he gave me 4 years. And I was like, and I was okay with it. My lawyer cried. I looked at him, I was like, "What's up, bro?" He's like, "Man, I can't believe we I let you down." And I was like, "Yo, it's cool. I got this journey to go on." And when I went to the Department of Corrections, and everywhere I went, I just started meeting people, and we started engaging, and I started like changing lives, and people were changing my life, and it's like this peer mentor in there, and I think that's where I perfected my craft. And I used to sit in the cell at night, and even lights out, I would read and I would write, and I would just write and write from the light of the exit signs, and my cellies would be like, "Are you still up writing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I just got one more page." And I would just write. By the time I went home, I must have went home with about 6 or 7 notebooks full of just things I wanted to do. And while I was in there, I wrote a 5-year plan. And the 5-year plan was to become a substance abuse counselor because I thought they were cool. They get to wear whatever they want. And they kind of like, it was a cool job. I think I could do that. And I did a lot of research about drugs, right? So I figured,
you're qualified.
I could do this job, right? And for some reason, the substance abuse counselor jobs, you can have a criminal record, and that's kind of like a requirement for the deal, right? So I was cool with that. So I was like, yeah, I think I could get this kind of job. And when I was released from prison, I remember I got out June 10th, 2010, and I had this, I had a resume, and I had 1 T-shirt, 1 pair of pants, and a tie, and a pair of old black shoes that I put some Vaseline on, to clean them up. You guys might not know about that.
No, we don't know that prison.
I'm just schooling.
I know, new trick.
This is old school. I'm just teaching you something.
That's Jackie, I think.
You're live on PPRN.
Hey,
Jackie?
it's me. What's going on, everybody?
What's up, Jackie? I was telling my story about shining my shoes with Vaseline, and these guys
Were they
didn't know
Adidas?
about it. Nah, they was black dress shoes. And
Obviously, you weren't actively listening, Peter.
yeah, were they Adidas?
You said shoes, sneakers, same thing.
Yeah, that's what Cowboy fans say.
He doesn't know. He just walked into a mine shop. All right. So Jackie, you're on the air. You're live and listening, right? Because we got great. So Daryl is sort of in the middle of telling his fascinating recovery story. So I'm going to let him go ahead with that.
Oh yeah. So like I said, I just welcome Jackie. I was, getting, I had that resume, I had the pair of shoes and tie, and I had wrote on the top of my resume, State of Connecticut Department of Corrections, because I had just worked there for the last 3 years, right? I was a peer mentor, right? And so I remember this lady, like I had faxed the resume, and like an hour later I got a response. Hey, could you come down? So I go there. I put that one shirt on and that tie and those pants and shined up those shoes. And I get there, and the lady was so excited. She was shaking my hand, and she was like, we've never had a guy from the Department of Corrections apply for a job here. She's like, what was that like working with those convicts, those criminals? And I was like, wow. She's like, I noticed in the salary it said 50. Was that $50,000 a year? And I was like, nah, it's $50 every 2 weeks. And she looked at me a little puzzled, and I said, well, I was incarcerated when I was incarcerated when I was working with these guys. And she was like, oh. And so she closed the folder, and she said, we'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to get that job. And then about 4 or 5 days later, they called me back and said, hey, could you come back down? And I was like, yeah. So I asked my girlfriend, I said, I know I've been in prison for 3 years. Do they normally call you back to prison? Do they normally call you back to an interview to tell you didn't get the job? And she's like, I think you got a warrant. You shouldn't go down there.
Trap.
Yeah. Needless to say, I didn't listen to her. And I put the shirt and tie back on, shined the shoes up again. And I looked around the parking lot to make sure there weren't any unmarked cars or anything there. And when I went upstairs, there were these 2 ladies. And both the ladies were sitting there, and they were like, hey, come in and sit down. And I was like, no, I'll stand. And they were like, no, sit down. And they said, in that room over there, there are people in the room next door. They have master's degrees and bachelor's degrees, but they don't have what you have. And what you have is lived experience. And we'd like to give you a shot. And, that was kind of the game changer for me. And I worked that job for 4 years as a case manager, peer mentor, working as a recovery support specialist. I should say the title right, because if it wasn't for Advocacy Unlimited and that recovery specialist training that I took, I wouldn't be here. And that kind of changed my life. So I became a certified recovery specialist. And through that process, I worked as, a recovery support specialist. And I got to work with multiple people. And, I used to even have like a little waiting list of people that wanted to work with me, because I knew the street, I knew the system, and it was just really cool. And then from there, after working about 4 years there, an opportunity came up where I got to work with troubled youth in the Access Center at Sound Community Services, which was created after the Sandy Hook tragedy. And, so we started working with these 18 to 25-year-olds, which is a special bunch.
Yeah, I worked with them. I worked with that group. I was a counselor a few years back at what's now Turning Point.
Oh, yeah, I know. I got friends over there in Norwalk.
No, the one in
New Haven.
Oh, okay, New Haven. Yeah, there's a
Turning. Now it's Turning Bridge or something like that.
Okay.
Turnbridge.
Turnbridge.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know a Turning Point in Norwalk.
Is,
yeah, I got some friends down there.
Yeah, there's a long-term residential, and it's 18 to 25-year-olds.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So there are challenges. Sometimes they're a challenge because they're young and they're invincible, but these are young guys from the inner city and everywhere, homeless and backpack bunch, and but it was cool to engage with them. And then from there, I got the associate director's position working with the state. And I remember that transition. I liked working with people, like one-on-one, face-to-face. And I remember consulting with a really good friend now, who was a pastor at the time, and she's a pastor now. And she told me, you work with this small group of people now, but you have an opportunity to work with the masses. And just on that advice, I've been able to, do some amazing things working with the state. We've done some cool things. We actually took like 275 people to D.C. and we went to the Faces in Addiction thing. We just did something out in Woodstock, Connecticut. We did the Summer Stigma Slam. the quilting event. We have a quilt that's going around. Anybody that sees the Remembrance quilt, we're always putting out, looking for new places to do the Remembrance quilt, where the Remembrance quilt is where people come and make a square for someone who has died due to an addiction related issue, whether it be opioid overdose or alcohol or what have you. And you can make this square for somebody in remembrance of them. So we have like 2 or 3 quilts that are going around the state, and we're looking to actually connect with other states to, similar to the AIDS quilt, just to keep bringing awareness to the opioid crisis.
Yeah. There was this article I was talking about in Vox. They said within 10 years there'll be, what did it say? Basically, about over 500,000 people will have died from opiate-related causes in the next 10 years if we keep going at this pace, which is the entire population of the city of Baltimore.
Wow.
So that's pretty scary. But so your background, your story, it really is inspirational, and it's proof positive that nobody's a throwaway person.
Right.
And that putting resources into treating people with addiction makes sense. And by the way, there is I can't quote the exact article, but there is research that shows for every $1 put into addiction treatment, the society at large saves $8.
Oh yeah, totally. I believe that.
And so, your story doesn't end there, though, right? Because besides working for the state and doing all those kind of cool things and getting that job that you probably could have never imagined having when you were sitting in that jail cell,
not even wasn't on my radar.
Right. It wasn't in your 5-year plan.
No.
But you've gone on to do some other things yourself.
Yeah.
And I really would love for you to talk about, what it is that you're doing in your own nonprofit, and sort of how you came to decide to go in that direction.
So in my quote unquote free time, I got together with a couple of friends, and this has been a dream of mine for many years to create a nonprofit, and the nonprofit's called Soft Landing. And Soft Landing is basically a nonprofit created for anyone that's been affected by incarceration or treatment, but mostly affected by incarceration. I'm a big person on the mass incarceration and the effects of mass incarceration that are affecting our inner cities. 75% of the people that are, let's go back to 2.2 million people being incarcerated, and 75% of them being African Americans and Hispanic. So that hits hard home for me, being the fact that I was one of those people. And when we think about the crisis now, there was, growing up in the inner city, there was always something going on. Like the crack epidemic was pretty bad. Having grown up in that, and now here we are in the midst of the opiate crisis.
Right.
So, Soft Landing was created because I remember what really made me push harder is when I was released from prison. There weren't a lot of services out there for people, and I remember just coming home and having a bed. And the fact that I had a bed in that 5-year plan, I was able to go out and look for work and so on. But I felt like, wow, what if other people had this opportunity, just having a bed and possibly coupled with some mentoring, people that have been through this before. I think that they would have a better chance of being successful. And our goal is to cut down recidivism, right? Recidivism and promote recovery at the same time. So, we have this, and a lot of our funding comes from, which is amazing, is that we don't receive state funding. We don't go for federal funding at this time. Everything is either in kind or donations from people that believe in the cause. And we've been very fortunate to have lawyers and law firms and just regular people just give to, because they believe in recovery and they believe in what we're doing, what we're trying to do. So we've been very fortunate to do that and help a lot of people along the way. And we just hope to continue to, inspire others. I mean, we are all, myself and I have Chuck and my friend Quan, and then many other people that have, joined in this fight to help us. There's been many people along the way, whether they help us write to get our 501c3, or just gave us money for chairs, or bought chairs, or donated microwaves or coffee pots. I can't thank them enough for, believing in what we do. And every chance we get, we're helping people really just change, promoting change in our community, starting right there. Like we have a 6-bed house that was given to us in kind, and we have guys that are in there, but it's right in the middle of the neighborhood. Promoting change in our community, starting right there. Like
There's an echo. That's
I hear some guy talking. I don't know who he is, but he sounds pretty cool.
He's smooth. He's smooth.
Yeah, he sounds really cool. Sounds like he's been on the radio before.
Hey, Jackie, you still there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I didn't put you to sleep, Jackie, right?
Jackie, I was wondering when Daryl's talking about making that transition, in your story, I don't know if you had help or if you could appreciate the importance of having that kind of help.
Said, being able to have like a roof over my head when I came home was critical. And there's so many people from when they're discharged, especially those who EOS, that don't have that stability. And I think when you don't have that stability, your chances of reoffending are huge.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's I don't know. Just like you said, knowing that you have a bed to sleep in. I mean, that's a great feeling after doing, that much time in prison.
Right. And
and I liked when you said how you just, got the Vaseline to shine your shoes, and it was just like putting in that effort, doing whatever it takes. And, I've done case management before myself, and so many of the people I would come in contact with, especially the guys that, how hard it is to get a job, I have a record. And here and there, depending on the situation, I would be like, do you want to see mine?
Right.
You just, doors are going to shut, but there's doors that are going to open too, and you just have to believe in yourself first in order to, if you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to be able to sell yourself to say, like, you know what, let me give this kid a chance, or let me give this person a chance.
Right. Yeah, I think it shows through when you believe what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And Daryl, you probably don't know this, but I used to work in a federal prison, and I started off as a prison psychologist, but then I moved on to a position running a drug treatment program inside the federal penitentiary. And, you mentioned recidivism before. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has a 66% recidivism rate in the first 12 months on average for people who are released. 66, out of 100 people get reincarcerated. And so I ran this pretty really well-designed drug program by the feds. I ran it, but they designed it, and it was excellent. And it was an intensive addiction treatment program for 9 months and 5 days a week for 4 hours. So obviously pretty intense process. And the inmates who were in that program had all been identified as having substance abuse issues, contributing to their incarceration or reincarceration. Sometimes, more than once they were in and out. And to make a long story short, we graduated 100 inmates the first year from the program. And by the way, when they completed the program, they could get a year off their sentence. By doing this.
Wow.
So it was a huge.
I needed to be in that program.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a big deal. It was a really big deal, and the feds were going out on a limb trying to get people out in the community faster. And so after a year, we graduated. During the course of a year, we graduated 100 inmates from the program. And a year later, we did a study, and I might have mentioned this on the air in the past, but we did a study to see how many of those inmates were reincarcerated, and we know what we were measuring against, which was 66%. Take a guess how many of those inmates were reincarcerated there.
20%.
That's a good guess, but actually it was 1.
Huh.
Wow.
I don't doubt that.
It was 1 inmate.
Yep.
And that's what when I talk about saving dollars and saving lives, I mean, if you just sit in prison, most people, you did your own work. Most people don't do that. You know,
No.
they need help to prison can, unfortunately, for some people, it's the time when they can make those
Saved my
changes.
life.
Yeah, it saved your life. You're still here. And,
I'm still here for
and I loved being a part of that because those guys were thriving. You know, they
Right.
weren't just, but anyway, going back to your mission there with Soft Landing, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to hear what else you have to say about that. 'Cause
Oh no, so we're just like really in the beginning stages. This is our first year, and we're just still figuring a lot of it out.
Right.
Always open for any volunteers or in-kind stuff. Right now, our website is being in the process created, but I'm definitely on Instagram at Soft Landing CEO, or we do have a Facebook page for our Friendship House, or just follow me at Darwin McGraw on Facebook as well. I'm always looking for new friends. We're looking to just keep creating and making opportunities for people. What we'd like to see is eventually offering wraparound services for everyone. Like if your mate gets locked up and you don't really there's so many people that the criminal justice system is hard to figure out, right? And if it's your first timer and your mom's trying to figure out, well, where do I send the money and how does this work? And my son's asking for money. Do they eat in there? There's so much that you don't know, right? And we'd like to offer those services, but also have a place for people to come, resource center for them to come home to and be able to, we're really about reintegration. What we're about is reintegration for people coming home, returning citizens. It's about reintegration. So not only creating an opportunities while people are away and trying to work with their families, but when you come home and someone says, I've been there, I know what it's like to, come home and want to sell drugs because there's nobody hiring, or my girlfriend's giving me $20 a day out of a little bit of money that she has.
Or that's just what you've done
Right.
for so long.
Yeah, that's been your reality,
yeah.
right? But I think that what we would be remiss not to talk about the trauma that people experience before prison, in prison,
And during
and after
prison.
prison, right? Exactly.
During prison.
So the whole trauma, there's all this trauma, and I think that I'm sure that in that federal program that you're talking about, they probably touched upon some of the trauma issues and some of the stuff that we don't even think about, like urban trauma when we're growing up in these urban environments as young kids. Like I was a latchkey kid when I was 6 years old, and that had a lot to do with the choices I made later on in life.
Yeah, I remember one particular group that we did with the inmates. It was about fathers and,
Right.
and the relationship
Yeah.
they had or didn't have with their fathers.
Yeah.
And it was incredible to see, inmates crying in front of each other.
Oh, yeah.
Grown men being that vulnerable in that setting
Yeah.
because there wasn't one guy who didn't have a really heart-wrenching
Right.
story about losing their dad or being abused by their dad, or then there's a lot of trauma,
Right.
and so I also wonder how do you identify so the house that you have, do you work with inmates who are going to be coming out of prison?
Well, we get all kinds of referrals from everyone. Somebody is pretty much like word of mouth, like kind of like the Krispy Kremes or whatever. They don't advertise. We just people hear about us and know about us. I didn't want to make you hungry or anything like that.
Krispy Kreme.
Yeah, but they don't advertise, right? And we're an organization that says, listen, you need a place to stay. We can try to help you as best as we can, right? Your only requirement is that you don't use drugs and you don't bring drugs into the house or anything like that. And we'll do the best that we can to try to. Some people need a month, some people need 2 months, some people need more than that. So we try to do that. There's no clinical. We're not clinicians. We're not that. We're just people that have been through the system and are giving back. And this is all about giving back. So Soft Landing is about giving back. The house is about giving back. And it's just about living in purpose.
What town is the house in?
New London.
So you guys, you don't take basic needs, though?
We don't. Yeah,
Not
we're not.
yet.
We're
Not
not.
there yet.
Well, you have to be a basic needs provider, and
Right,
that's a
right.
state-funded program.
It's a
And
whole
so we
other-
try to stay away from anything that could be a potential conflict of interest.
Right. But what about people who maybe don't have money you know, a lot of places they ask for money up front, plus, you know what I mean?
So what we do is everything is case by case basis. You know what I mean? If we have the donations and we have the space we'll take people who are really willing to try. I mean, like, I didn't have the money to move into any place, but you know what? If I had the will and I had the desire to change, and we can see that some of the stuff you can fake, but a lot of stuff you can't fake purpose.
Do you interview people coming? You do.
We do. Yeah, we do. And it's not usually. It's you know, Chuck has been very successful. Chuck is our house manager, our program guy. He's like the guy that meets the people, and you know, he's an older guy and he's pretty smart. So he can read game. You know, in the street they say game recognizes game, and he has a hell of a game radar.
Do you ever find people who are coming out of prison, they had an opiate addiction, but they've been in prison for a while, and maybe they, you know, I know you can use opiates. In fact, Suboxone is but I think sometimes people coming out of prison have this false sense of security that they're not really vulnerable to relapse because they've been clean for 2 years or 3 years, whatever, that kind of thing. And if it was my relative, I'd want them going like immediately into treatment, regardless of how much clean time they have inside. You know,
for me, I think it's individual. I think that it's an individual thing. I think you know yourself. Like, you know, a lot of people, I think that's, especially with opioids, you know, but addiction in general is cunning and baffling, right? So you could do all this time, you could be clean. Like, I was a person that, I like to say I was institutionalized. I don't like to say it, but that's what was my reality, right? So being institutionalized, when I get locked up, as soon as the cuffs go on, I become this model person, right? And I come like, you know, so the structured environment, I'm not using in jail. I'm following the rules. I'm not doing anything to get in trouble. It's once I'm released and I have all that freedom and that will back.
And you have no responsibility.
Right. So
you don't have any of that stress.
You don't have all those things. So once you get out, you know, it kind of is a game changer. And, you know, for me and what we tell the guys that come through the house that are institutionalized is that we try to teach them how to structure their environment on the outside, how to use the institutionalization to their benefit. You know, I'm not going to tell you all the secrets, though. I like to tell you that, but that's a whole different course. And we also have one other thing that I chuckle to be like if I didn't mention it. So we have this thing called PIMP, which is called PIMP. And, you know, there's probably something that you couldn't do at an agency, but being that it's ours, we could do whatever we want.
That's right.
And so it's post-incarceration mentoring program, and that's one of the things that we're probably most proud of because it's something that we do one-on-one. We try to link people with people that are already that need that mentoring, and whether it be me, a person from the inner city, or somebody from the suburbs, we reach out to people that are doing well in their process, and we try to connect them with people that are struggling in their process. You know, I think that, you know, we're going to be quite successful in the future, but right now we're pretty happy with what we're doing.
I was going to say, when you started working for the state, did you miss that one-on-one that
totally.
used to, and does this kind of fulfill
that fills
you know
the gap.
I mean?
That was what it was all about. It's all about me. It's always all about me, right? When I was, you know, the case management thing, it was a dream. It was a dream come true. I got to ride around in a car, and I was interacting with people, and I was really busy. Now with the state, it's a different kind of busy. You know, we do a lot of policy, we do a lot of meetings, we do a lot of different things. I get to interact with people, but on a different level.
Right.
And every once in a while, you know, there'll be people that people say, you know what, for one reason or another, they weren't able to engage with them, and they thought that it'd be nice if I could reach out to them. And I get an opportunity to do that, but not enough, not at the same level. So when I get off of work and I get to go into the hood and just be me, it's still that street atmosphere, and people are still running game and all of that stuff like that. But they get to see us actually like guys that are not using, you know, being successful, taking care of their families. I know you mentioned fatherhood, and that's one of another key component for for what we do is that we fatherhood groups, and just, you know, good dads, bad dads. You know, if you want to be a good dad, or, you know, we have these dads that are interacting in the community and they're taking care of their kids, but then we have these other people that are struggling. So how do we put these two guys together and say, hey, I've been there, this is my struggle, this is what I do, you know, and we're also like, you know, when I have the time, I've been able to be a coach, and that was a part of my 5-year plan, is being a part of the community. And not that I'm a good coach, I'm not a good coach at all, because I wasn't a sports guy. But the relationship that you get to build with inner city kids and kids that are from the neighborhood, they still call you coach. My friends laugh. They're like, "Why are they calling you coach, bro? You never played basketball or anything." But the relationship that you have, because there's still a lot of kids. I think the numbers were like 1.5 million kids are in our country that our parents are incarcerated. So, trying to make those connects and really try to help people. So that's part of our transition. When we created Soft Landing, we wanted to focus really on fathers that were returning, because we wanted them to be part of the community. And the biggest piece of that is every time we help one person not return back to prison, we saved the state of Connecticut $51,000.
I think you should bill him.
Hey, I have no comment on that. But, we're saving the state $51,000, but we're also hopefully
annually.
Right. We're hoping that this person becomes employed and he takes care of his kids. And there's so much benefit from doing that. And that's what's important about grassroots. Grassroots, you can do stuff like that because you're more connected right there to the problem.
Well, you have credibility with these guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's huge.
We speak the language.
Yeah, because they've been in agencies and in front of people that
Right.
don't understand their life and don't have credibility.
Right.
I have to say, and I hope I don't embarrass him, but when I see Quan talk about you and everything, it's just his whole face lights up. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you've definitely had an impact a positive impact on him.
Thank you. It's about connection, though, and that's what we're about. We're about connection. And hopefully that, I try to make every interaction with human beings be pleasant and positive, so that every time we walk away, you could be like, wow, that was cool.
There's a well-known, well-received podcast. I forgot who the name of the gentleman is who does it, but it talks about addiction as being a lack of connection.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I've saw some people talk about that on the internet. I mean, addiction is a lot of things, but I know there was one person that says if they had all these connections and these relationships, they probably wouldn't use. But I think that it's deeper than that.
Well, it's
but it's definitely a key
it.
component. I mean, without the
component
relationships,
to recovery for sure.
Yeah, without the relationships that I had, I just we talk about people, places, and things, right?
But to progress to recovery, you need that human connect. Healthy. Let me say that. Healthy human connection.
Absolutely.
Well, I say this, addiction leads us to isolation, but recovery's within the community.
Totally.
Right? I mean,
yeah, you're right. I mean, for me, when they used to say people, places, and things, that didn't matter to me because I used to get high by myself. So that wasn't going to work for me. I used to say, they have that saying, an addict by himself is in bad company, so.
Yeah, I stress that a lot in my practice because one of the problems I have is, my clients do really well and everything, but I keep talking, I almost preaching at them about this. I was talking in a group about this today. Suboxone is a wonder drug, but it's not a replacement for social support. And if you're going to stay clean after you're off Suboxone, we get our clients off Suboxone. That next resource that you're going to need to rely on to stay clean is other people.
Right.
And not enough of my clients are invested in social support, and I keep trying to push it because it is those connections that even if you fall down, those connections are the way you get back up.
Right.
Right. And unfortunately, with opiates, a lot of times people do have setbacks, but if they're connected, they're much more likely to get back up.
Well, that's the thing, and I'm glad that you said that because that's important. We get a lot of parents who call, or we're at forums. When a lot of times there were a lot of opiate forums around the state where people had said, well, my son was on the Suboxone and it didn't work. well, did your son take Suboxone and change his friends? Did they?
Right.
Because there's a lot. It's not a magic. It's
Exactly,
you know,
right.
so
That's
there's
right. It
a
was-
lot of other steps that you have to take in order for it to really work.
And that's what we sort of pride ourselves on, is that the Suboxone is gives people an actual shot at recovery, but all it does is even the playing field. They still got to do all the work, and we're there to help them. We're there to help them, facilitate that work.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I
Well,
like
for
how.
the diabetic with insulin. Insulin's not going to save their life. They have to make healthy lifestyle choices, but it gives them the ability to, that kind of foundation, safety net in a way.
I like how when you were telling your story, there was that line you hit in your life, and I feel like I had the same thing. There's this line, and
Right.
once you hit it, I hate saying like bottom and all that, but a line, and once you hit it, it's like,
Right.
you just figured it out. You
Yep.
you were like, I know what I'm gonna do, and you did it.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's a cool place to be when you say to yourself, or you realize. I always tell people, when you're done. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'll hear people, like, I go places and I go all over the country in different places, and people say, "Oh, well, I'm going to try, or I'm going to do this," but you really know when you're done. Like, in your heart of hearts. And it's not easy. You're going to have to put in some work, but it's a lot easier when you've made your mind up.
Yeah. You're an inspiration, Daryl.
Thank you.
Incredible,
It's cool.
incredible story.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And like I said, that little quote I read, it was so disturbing. But then you run. It's funny how things work, and then I run into you, and it just doesn't get any more definitive about why we really need to treat every person with addiction as a life that worth saving.
And
Yeah.
they actually say that people,
it is.
and they actually say that people who have had substance use disorders or mental health and find recovery actually do more for the community
Yep.
than the person who doesn't or never
Right,
had that.
right.
Which
Well, I think that, it's an awesome, I have some real good friends who have, that I work with, of course, who are just as passionate,
Oh, yeah.
But those of us that have been through this journey and know what it's like to be in that much pain, whether it be mental health or substance, once we find a space where we can help, man, we're totally giving back. I feel like it's our duty to give back, because here I am sitting here on the radio with you guys. 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, right. The only radio would have been the police radio talking about he's tall guy. You know what I mean? So I think that and this is every day, man. I feel like I'm blessed. These opportunities just keep coming in. And hopefully that somebody's out there listening, and we're helping them and giving them that extra thing. And sometimes it's just the encouragement for a parent to not give up. When you hear a success story, you're like, you know what? I was just about to give up on him. I was talking to a mom in the parking lot before we came up.
Yeah, I heard.
And I was
sort of
like,
heard it a little
listen,
bit.
we'll keep. Because it is a journey, right? And none of us are perfect, and we still, bump our heads from now. Hopefully, we'll be able to do some more amazing things together in Connecticut, and
I think you're going to. I can't believe it's you're pretty far into things for being 1 year.
I know.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that I can see this is going to be it's going to expand.
Yeah, we hope so. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Our logo is a parachute, a guy on a parachute, and we always tell people, because we're like right in the thick of things, and sometimes you see people walk past us and they're going right past us to cop, because there's like cop spots right down the street.
Yeah.
And we want to try to save them all, but one of the things with a parachute. There's one thing that you got to do for the parachute to work. You got to pull the string, right? If you don't pull the string, what happens? So that's kind of what we tell people. We want to help you. We're there, but you got to do some of the work, and some of the work is pulling the string. You pull the string, man. Who knows? The world, a whole bunch of things happen, And those of us that are here, myself included, I pulled the string, and now I'm here. So we're just encouraging people to pull the string and save lives.
Let me know when you get that women's house.
I got you. That and our recovery cafe, hopefully one day. You know,
I already got my barista apron dusted off.
We need a place for us to chill somewhere. People in recovery of all walks of life need a place to go and just be.
You know, just off the top of my head, there's some great places out there already. Maybe they're not recovery cafes, but maybe they'd be willing to be a recovery cafe for an evening.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, cover up
bring some business.
Cover up the
people.
alcohol and bring out good food.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
If you see me, if you're a Facebook friend, you know I post a lot of
all
food.
about the food.
I post a lot of food. I eat
My
a
current
lot.
situation.
I know. I'm about to get a shirt that
Bigger
says
than
that.
grilled cheese now.
Yes. I haven't had grilled cheese in a while.
You know, back then we weren't.
Yeah, ramen noodles are not allowed. Ramen noodles are not allowed in my house because I ate
No
so many.
mofongo.
No. But I was a chef.
It's been a pleasure, Daryl.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And come back anytime.
Oh yeah, I'd love
Keep
to.
us posted, and anything we can do to help your organization. I'm already mentally filing that away.
I'm hoping. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's so
Okay.
cool. You know,
All
we'll
right.
definitely be back.
Thank you, Daryl.
Thank you.
Just last before we check out, I just realized I talked about my practice in Madison, and let people know that we do a great job and we take all kinds of insurance. But I didn't do is give out the phone number, so I'm going to do that now. If anyone needs any help with their opiate addiction, they need to get help quickly and good help, you can call us at 203-245-0412. That's the Center for Compassionate Recovery. That's the name of my practice. And if you give that number a call, if it's after hours or in the weekend, that'll be rolling over directly to my cell, and we can chat. Okay? All right.
Thank you,
thank
Peter.
You. And thanks for calling in, Jackie.
Thanks, Jackie.
Oh no,
Thanks,
I'll
Jackie.
definitely be present next week.
Yeah, next week we want you here. All right.
Yes, I will be there. I'm committed to moving anything.
All right.
All right,
All right,
Jackie.
have a good night, everybody.
All right.
It was
you
a pleasure.
too. Take us out, Pete.
Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. We'll see you. No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's
Labor
right.
Day's
2 weeks
next week.
because it's Labor Day. That's
All right,
right.
everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you later.
PPRNradio.net. Listen to PPRNradio.net. You may take a break.